It's April 8th, 2005, and if you can recall where you are, I'd love to hear it, but I can. I was sitting beside Nana in our camper at Flintlock Campground in Boone, North Carolina. There we sat transfixed on the television screen, both of us fascinated by the most news-making thing to happen that day. It was the state funeral of Pope St. John Paul II, and though neither Nana nor I were Roman Catholic, nor were we in Vatican City, they might as well have called us to be correspondents for the funeral watching. In fact, over the past 2 decades, I counted back, I can recall at least 10 state or notable funerals or televised state religious services on television that Nana and I watched together. She was so proud the day that I participated in the National Prayer Service in 2021, and more recently when I helped provide coverage for President Carter's funeral for television. The last state funeral, or close to state funeral service we watched together was that of former Vice President Dick Cheney on November 20th, where both her and I longed for the civility and respect on display at his service. It should come as no wonder then that she desired for her service to be planned carefully and thoughtfully and well. Over the past few years, we sat together in her parlor and envisioned this service together. There were adjustments made over time as she narrowed in on things she wanted most. But this, to me at least, is about as close to a Statesville state funeral as I've ever seen one. And for that, I am grateful. Nana's fascination with anything and everything interesting like televised religious services was not new to her. On a trip to New York City with her dad, she befriended a park ranger. Nana was good at befriending people like that. And that park ranger took her 7-year-old self up to the tip of the flame of the Statue of Liberty. That opportunity is no longer afforded to anyone on tours, mind you. Nana recalled last year when my wife Stephanie were at the National Cathedral prior to the White House Christmas party that her favorite memory there was when she was a young child and they had begun carving the faces of the high altar in the nave of the cathedral. The cathedral was under construction, and she was fascinated by the work being done, so you know what she did? She befriended one of the artisans. And one of the artisans let her touch one of the statue's noses and taught her how the proportions for the nose were different because the statue was to tower over the cavernous cathedral. Nana said to me in a text that day that I screenshotted and cherish still, that she dreamed of telling her children and grandchildren of that moment at the cathedral where our national and liturgical lives intersect. Later, Nana would return to Washington, D.C. for a high school trip with Statesville Senior High School, as it was called back then. Nana had heard about the subways underneath the Capitol building and was disappointed to learn that you needed a member of Congress to escort you on them. Instead of being defeated, instead of walking away, she camped out by the subway and tried to befriend a senator or a representative who walked by. Most all of them passed by and ignored this young girl, save for one. A young senator from Massachusetts took an interest in her. Senator John F. Kennedy was kind enough to oblige her request and took her and her friends on a tour of the Capitol building. I don't know if that says more about John Kennedy or her. I'll leave that to you to decide. And just in case you thought that I'm just a doting grandson, these stories have been verified for accuracy as best I could. I could go on and on, right? I could speak of her hosting Her Royal Highness Princess Anne at the Garden Club function that is now family lore. And what's funny to me is the picture that we have of her, the photographer was attempting to capture the Princess Royal in all her splendor, but instead it's just showing off Nana. It's showing off Nana's remarkable attire and her stance and her form and her grace. Nana was such a fan of the British royalty, and we talked about that a lot. She had me break the rules and take pictures of the coronation robes at Westminster Abbey when Scott and I visited there earlier this year. Yet that photo with her, of her with the royal that she admired, she stole the show. That's what Nana did. But it was in her own way. It's funny how it works, isn't it? Sometimes the people who aren't supposed to be the center of attention turn out to be the person you can't miss by their humility and their decorum. You can also tell that her interactions that she had with everybody, she treated everyone with the same kindness and compassion, no matter their status or their function. Whether that was her interactions with the Statesville royalty of the Bridge Club of 65 years that she helped to found, or her phone call that I was able to orchestrate between her and President Biden. She was one who knew that the most important person in the room was the person she was talking to. She knew well how to host. She knew well how to have a conversation. She knew well how to tell a story, and there is a legacy in that for those of us who are around to pay attention. And to be clear, that legacy didn't just start a few years back. That legacy dates back a generation. Both Toby Gordon and Peggy Bryan have shared stories with me this week of when Nana was the first to welcome you all to Statesville when they came to town. It was her way of showing hospitality, of inculcating them into the community, of bringing them near and extending a hand of friendship that would last a majority of their lives. And while presidents and prelates and the preeminent of Statesville have had the opportunity to interact with her and know her well, out of all the monikers and associations she had, out of all the positions she held, she was most of all my Nana. She was my best friend. In the later years of her life, we kind of switched roles to where I was her chauffeur, her confidant, her tech support for her iPhone, which messed up more than it should. In turn, she gave my daughters and my wife and myself the greatest gift of sitting with them in the car when I would go into the grocery store. She would attend their dance recitals. She would share her mints with them. Athena even claims that there was one time I was taking way too long in the grocery store, and Nana gave her 7 mints. The first time she met her great-grandchildren on our side of the family, our girls, it was during the craziness of the COVID pandemic. Nana knew that this was a moment she dare not miss despite the risk. She suggested in her wisdom that we should meet outside of Oakwood Cemetery at Moses, the old magnolia tree in the center of the cemetery where she often took my brother and I to play in our younger years. Nana was one who knew the power of tradition, of repetition, of telling that old story that matters so much. She also knew what it meant to be a grandmother who gave so much of her time and treasure for all her grandkids. One such gift was that when Scott and I were growing up, Nana would come over and stay with us on Friday nights when my parents would go out on a date night. One Friday afternoon that will live in infamy forever was as we waited for our ordered Domino's pizza to arrive, we started watching the original Star Wars trilogy and tried to make it the entire way through without falling asleep. We did. I did a quick calculation, and that was 6 hours and 16 minutes worth of Star Wars that Nana gave of her time and her effort and her energy for us. Nana gave of her Friday nights so that my parents could go out to eat, so that we might continue to be enamored by a series that my dad had loved in his youth. I could recount too many stories for time allows. I've been told I'm keeping track. I don't even have a watch on, by the way. She helped me to love The Golden Girls, one of the greatest television shows of all time. She gifted me the first stole at my ordination that Sandy's wearing. The stole that I'm wearing now was a gift she saw at Jason's mother's funeral that she just loved. But perhaps the greatest gift of all was a gift of a box that she kept for those in her orbit. To give you an example, based on my 2 boxes over the course of my life, she clipped every single article I ever wrote for the Statesville Record and Landmark, every newspaper clipping, both good and bad, about my work in the public square, every bulletin of every church service I ever preached at that she attended, and some that she didn't, but had nonetheless collected. One thing I learned in going through my treasure trove of 2 boxes was that she grew older. She knew she couldn't attend every service. She couldn't be at every place. It was at that point that she enlisted my wife, Stephanie, to carefully collect, to collate, and to chronicle my journey of preaching and public theology. And I'm not the only one who got a box, by the way. So many of us have a box now to cherish. To be clear, the information in that box has enough to indict most of us. It has enough information that I didn't even know I needed. That's how she works. In my current job at the General Commission on Archives and History for the United Methodist Church, I've been tasked with working with descendant leaders of the Sand Creek Massacre that occurred on November 29th, 1864. Around Thanksgiving, I had communicated to the chiefs that Nana's health was ailing, and I would not be able to be present with them in my work over the coming days. The indigenous chiefs checked in on me regularly, and upon hearing of Nana's death, one chief said something profound. He said, "Now is the chance to live the prayers that your grandmother had made for you. That is the greatest way you could honor her." I got to thinking about what prayers Nana had made for us, and indeed, Nana prays for us now and is in closer proximity to God. You see, we, the church, believe that in some mystical fashion, those that are gone from us are not gone, but closer than the person next to you, yet in the very real presence of God. The great communion of the saints is a very real core tenet of our faith. While that may provide comfort, it should also be a challenge, because Nana laid down the gauntlet. Nana laid down the gauntlet for all of us and is cheering for us and is praying for us, even in the land beyond the Jordan. So what is it that Nana prayed for, if Nana indeed prayed for you? As someone who blessedly spent a lion's share of time with her, I may have some insight. To the Lee family, I envision and I am sure that Nana is praying for us to resist drifting apart, but rather that we might cling to one another in charity and in hospitality. We dare not let that light go out, even though our world feels dimmer by Nana's absence. We dare not forget her gifts that she gave us, and be sure to pass them on to those who need them. We must host and be hosted. We must be proud of one another and show compassion to one another as Nana did for us. We must keep the faith and not lose heart. We must be of good courage. To Granddaddy, for 67 years, you were married to one of the most incredible women this world has ever had the pleasure of hosting. I know deep down within me that Nana's prayer for you is that you might find peace in your memory of her, and that you know the love that you shared for her does not end just because the grave tried to take her. While I know both you and I would give so much for just a few more minutes with her, I know that her time with you will, under the light of God's grace and compassion, be magnified in your heart. Nana loved you so dearly. And our family is a benefactor of y'all's love. One of my earliest memories of spending the night at y'all's house was the hugs that you would share before bed. Don't ever lose the warmth of those hugs. To Dad and to Uncle Joe, Nana's prayer for you surrounds legacy. Yours are the legacy that Nana left for the world. And we, your children, are evidences and traces of that. Her prayer for you would be that to not forget the kindness she showed, the support she gave, the values she instilled within y'all and in your late brother John. Hers was the heart that now beats on in you. And your ability to show the world the same heart is a testament to Nana's love for you and for all her children. And that's a way for a small but mighty way that Nana will live on in all of us. That last night I was with her, Nana was aware that the parting was going to be hard. But she gave you both tools that you will need to carry the torch that she lit long ago and to keep it burning. That's just the way she did things. You are not unprepared. Yours are the heritage she was most proud of. To the Bridge Club, I know that Nana is praying that you follow the rules, because she was an expert at that. But most importantly, that you never neglect the conversation at hand either. Because I have this sneaking suspicion with you all after 65 years of playing bridge together, it wasn't just about the bridge. It was about your fellowship. It was about your being together. Bridge was the medium. Fellowship was the goal. Don't lose that. Don't lose that. To Broad Street United Methodist Church, you're the beloved church that was her spiritual home since September 29th, 1958. Yours is the collective heart that will carry on her legacy. She taught Sunday school for preschoolers, many of whom I've heard from this past week, who are my age now. It was the legacy she was most proud of in these walls. She was proud to be Miss Barbara to so many of our church's children. She rarely missed a sermon or a funeral of a friend or fellow church member. She even tuned into Dr. Howe's sermon via live stream here at Broad Street on the 16th of November. I loved that his sermon was on heaven. And that was the last sermon she heard before her health deteriorated. I'm so glad he preached on heaven and she heard of a foretaste of what now she knows on a greater light and on a fairer shore. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one church member in particular. Aaron Dalton, you were a special person to Nana because you sat beside her and listened to her stories. You generously sat beside her on the pew every Sunday as all of us sat near y'all. She loved your kindness in doing that. And we would all be wise as a church to continue the holy task of reaching out to one another as pew buddies. To the band kids, who aren't exactly kids on the outside anymore, Nana was so proud of all that you accomplished. She kept up with you and knew you well. I may not be able to match the name to the face, but if you tell me a name, I guarantee you I know a story. I trust she is praying on your behalf to keep the music alive in your hearts that you began long ago, even if you don't play an instrument anymore. Don't let that slip through your fingers because of your stage of life. I feel like in knowing you, I know there's many of stories that are now buried, and that's okay. But there's stories that are worth sharing too. I would say that one of the most consequential seasons of Nana's life was serving as office manager at Statesville Christian School. She loved the students and the staff there with an undying force that showed that she could be Nana more to those than even those who bore the name of Lee. Brian Postotnik, who worked at Statesville Christian School with Nana, now serves as minister of discipleship at Western Avenue Baptist Church, and he visited with Nana at Gordon Hospice House the morning before she died. There he told a story I had long since forgotten, but I'm especially fond of. Nana loved that job. But like me, she often kept weird and wonky hours of waking and of sleeping. She would be at work at Statesville Christian by 5:30 in the morning. School didn't start until well after that. It was there she would greet with great gusto and answer every phone by saying, "Good morning, this is Statesville Christian School. Barbara speaking." The only issue, as Brian would recall, is that the greeting of good morning that Nana offered would last well into the afternoon. And even after school, too. To all, it was endearing and humorous. Everybody gave her a hard time about it, and she just enjoyed being there. That was the thing. She was happy to be there. It didn't matter if it was morning, evening, night, whatever. That had my preaching wheels start to turn. Because at 7:12 in the evening on December 3rd, as darkness lay heavy on Statesville, Nana was greeted with a good morning like none other. For 87 years, Nana had endeavored to walk as a child of the light. She was told good morning as she reached home that night. She was told good morning by the Lord of the cosmos as she had greeted so many during her time at Statesville Christian School. Nana was greeted by our Savior. She was taken home. And I know with every fiber of my being right behind our Lord, her late son John couldn't have been far behind. I know she quickly caught up with everybody, including her dad, her mom, and Aunt Hazel. I always find it interesting that we say we go to eternal rest. Nana's not resting. She's up to something. It was there she received the fullness of her reward. It was there she was told good morning. Because in him there is no darkness at all. The night and the day are both alike. It is there that Nana was at last at home. So we're left. We're left to be the answers to the prayers that Nana made for us. Let's not let her down. We dare not let her down. All glory, honor, and power be to the one who was, who is, and who is to come. Amen.